Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So this is a bit of a shop update video as I'm waiting on some things to come in for the new structure behind me, and there's been some progress made on the cars that I wanted to showcase. So I guess we'll start off with the Supras, and we'll start off with the Mark IV specifically. So this car has been kind of the staple of this channel for the duration of the time I've been making these videos. And you guys have seen it go from something that was not running, just a car in the midst of the project, to something that does run, something that drives, something that at this point in time has made a pretty decent amount of power. And now I'm just waiting to get it to the track. So the one thing that needed to be addressed with this car that I never had really done anything with was the alignment. So if you remember, and if you guys have been around the channel for any length of time, oh god, it was probably last year, if not longer than that ago, my buddy Darius came down and we talked about his company, Perfect Balance. And what he does are race car alignments. And this is quite a bit different than the alignment that you would see at your local tire shop. So let's go ahead and rewind the clock and go have a day with Darius and get the alignment done on this thing. So we're over at Dula Design Performance, and my buddy Darius, who you guys saw in a video a little while ago, is about to put this thing on these stands and do a good old-fashioned alignment to it. So this will look a little bit different than an alignment you get at a tire discounters or a Goodyear or something like that. This is a race car alignment. So no alignment rack, no big fancy hunter machine. We're doing it with some tape measures, some string, some calipers, and Darius, I think I had all the tools right there, didn't I?
Yeah.
All right. But we're doing this what will look kind of like the old-fashioned way, but it's actually a pretty effective way to do this. So there's the man over there, Joe himself. He's the man, the myth, the legend who owns this place, and he's very kind and gracious enough to let us do this here. So I guess let me shut my yap, and we'll get this thing up on the stands and get after it. So this thing went through the whole gamut of a race car alignment. It was obviously aligned, it was scaled, it was corner weighted. We even adjusted the front ride height a little bit, and I ended up with something now that I have an extraordinary amount of confidence sending down the drag strip. So the weights of the car, as you guys saw from the captions and everything, with 225 pounds in the driver's seat to simulate me in all my racing gear and everything else, the car weighs a little bit over 3,400 pounds. Without the weight in the car was a little bit over 3,200 pounds. So initially that was a little bit more than I anticipated this thing weighing. However, when I actually sit and think about what I've done in terms of weight reduction, anything that was taken off of the car has been more than made up with the other components. So we have a giant turbo that's super heavy. We have all the plumbing and everything else. We have the roll cage. And this thing is more or less all steel, all glass, aside from the carbon hatch in the back. And that still has a bit of glass in it. So the car is by no means a lightweight, but I guess it could also be much, much worse. So at this point in time with this car, I'm just waiting to figure out a day to take it to the track. So in this part of the country, in this part of the world, the racing season is rapidly coming to a close. We're at the time of filming this midway through October, and at least one of the local tracks, they run test and tunes through mid-November, weather depending, obviously. So I'm hoping that with this thing, Jared with the blue SRT4, that if you guys remember that build series, he has that car up and running now. And my buddy Sean with his wild 1G DSM, we're all at the point now where we're about ready to go and try to cram in some late season hits, and I'm hoping that we can all get together and make some passes together that way. So not a whole lot of crazy stuff going on with this thing right now, but definitely is still operational, still running and driving and all of that. And this will be something that hopefully I can get some use out of before the end of the year, if not first thing come springtime. So moving past the Mark IV, we now have the Mark II. And if you see the engine bay looking all shiny and beautiful, that is thanks to Dave's handiwork. So Dave, if you guys have, again, been around the channel for any period of time, he has that beautiful green SRT4 that I just recently finished working on. So part of the deal that we worked out was me building parts for him and him doing what was initially supposed to be wet sanding and buffing on the engine bay of the Mark II. So in doing that, we ran into some issues with the paint to where he was going to respray the strut towers and the top of the firewall. And then we ran into even more issues with odd chemical reactions, so on and so forth, that got us to the point where we just said, screw it, let's repaint the whole engine bay. So let's go ahead and take that journey and watch Dave work his magic with the correct tools now. I'm taking a break from framework for a little while, and we have good old Dave over here to do some additional paint work. So with the issues that we ran into with the paint on this thing, which I'm not sure if I showed it or not, but we were having essentially a chemical reaction between the Steelite and the clear coat that we were using, and tried all different curing times, all different methods of spraying and everything else. Dave even took some of the stuff with him to work to play around with and do some experiments with, and we were never able to come up with a conclusive amount of time for curing and drying and everything between coats. So we decided to do it the right way. And Dave brought all of his gear and a couple of guns and everything, and he's going to spray it legitimately, not with spray cans. So he already has, this is pretty much all the prep work, isn't it?
Yep.
So this is ready for new paint to go down on top of it. So I guess we'll get to that and get this thing looking beautiful again. So as you can see, it's quite a step up from the rattle can job that I did with this thing initially. And what Dave did is put down a layer of epoxy primer and then a base coat. And this is a very similar color to the Steelite that I initially used, but this is actually a 60-something Jaguar color. And looking at the little spray out cards between Steelite and the Jaguar color, it's damn near the same thing. The Jaguar color has just a little bit more metallic in it, which I'm not opposed to at all. So epoxy primer, base, clear, and this thing at this point in time, after it has a little bit more time for the clear coat to set up and solidify and everything else, then we can finally wet sand and buff and get any little bits of dust or imperfections or anything like that, as we sprayed this thing as all of this construction had been going on. I did my best to try to remediate some of the sanding dust and everything, or the sawdust and everything else, but you can only do so much. So it will need a bit of wet sanding and buffing, but Dave will get that squared away. And once I have all the structure completed and I have this bay back where I'm not stacking cars, then we can get to actually putting this thing together and finally get the new engine in, get everything put back together, and get it well on its way to completion. So other vehicles in the shop that have made appearances on the channel, but not for quite some time. We have Plum Patty, my 2G DSM, and we have my Turbo YXZ 1000R. So we'll start with Plum Patty since I am closer to it. And frankly, not really anything has happened with Plum Patty. You can see it's on a flat tire. It needs new tires at this point in time. But my buddy Sean, he had came out and helped my other buddy Sean and his girlfriend Brittany and I put the first long pallet rack section up. He actually got this thing running. It needed a battery. Actually, both Plum Patty and the YXZ needed batteries, but he went down, got batteries, came back, got them fired up, and pulled them outside, washed them, so on and so forth. So he really did the full number on them to get them up and running again. And other than that, they've just kind of been sitting. And I have plans for Plum Patty eventually, but I have to get the other projects squared away first before I focus efforts on starting another project, because I certainly do not need to be in the midst of another project at this point in time. But she's just sitting here. She needs a new set of tires, needs to be ran and driven. But with wintertime coming and austere road conditions in respect to salt and everything else that will be going down, she likely will stay right in this spot for the rest of this year. And then come springtime, I can actually get it out and enjoy it a bit. So the YXZ, and if you guys remember, I did another bit of a build series on this thing when I was building the turbo kit for it, or the turbo system rather. And again, just like Plum Patty, it's just kind of sat here. So when I bought this thing initially, I had the intent to make an annual or a biannual dune trip out of it. Now I'm only a few hours away from Silver Lake up in Michigan, where if you guys watch the side-by-side blog guys, that is where they do a lot of their dune riding. So I had the intent to, like I said, make a trip or two a year out of taking this thing up to the dunes, and just have never really done it. So I keep bouncing back and forth with, do I want to keep this? Do I want to sell it? So on and so forth, as I don't really have a whole lot of places around here to ride it, aside from making trails through the woods. But even at that point, I'm not a huge fan of mud riding, and I don't like getting that dirty. So it's kind of relegated to sitting here until it's time to make a dune trip. And I have up above the office here a set of paddle wheels and tires for it. It's a nice setup and everything else. I just need to get some use out of it. So that's something I guess I can make a New Year's resolution going into 2024 to actually get this thing out and do some stuff with it, because it is a very, very fun vehicle that unfortunately has just been sitting here, and it just really isn't fair to it. So I'll probably try to make a couple of trips in 2024 up to the dunes, go have some fun there, and then decide if I want to keep it or not at that point in time. But for right now, it'll sit here for the remainder of this year. Aside from if it snows, I might take it out for some snow fun, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So on to the new room structure. So this project, as you guys saw in the last video, did all of the framing and everything else. And I've since came in and did a little bit of corner work. You can see a little bit of board overhang right there. I did that in all 8 corners, counting for the 2 rooms, for the actual ceiling paneling that I'll be putting on here, or what I'll be putting on the ceiling, I should say. And that will allow me to tie in the corners so they're not free floating. And if you see all of the tape around here, that is rough simulation of where different outlets and different electrical features will be at. So a buddy of mine, his name is also Matt, he is going to come out and wire this thing together for me. So I don't know if we'll do any filming about that or not, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I kind of went around and put tape to, again, simulate where different outlets and switches and so on and so forth will be, so that way he could get a little bit better idea of what will be required to put to run electricity over to these rooms. So he came out, we talked it over, and he sent me a proposal, which I accepted. And at this point in time, it's just a matter of getting the stuff done. So within the next week or 2, we should have the bulk of the wiring ran for all of this. And then it's on me to get all of the paneling and finish work done, and then he can finish up the electrical from there. And one thing I wanted to show is I got the venting situation squared away for the welding room with this fan right here. So this is a 12-inch kind of industrial ventilation fan. It has flap door deal with the fan on the inside, and I will use that to blow out any welding gases or noxious fumes that will be produced in the welding room. So that way I'm not speeding up the process of lung cancer any more than I already am. So that's squared away. All of the rest of the framing is squared away. And like I said, at this point in time, it's just a matter of getting together with Matt and getting the wiring squared away. So with all of the updates done, I guess let's go ahead, since it's been a little while, and let's run the YXZ Plum Patty and the Mark IV just to get a heat cycle in each one of them, keep them up and operational, and I'll try to make a habit out of that through the course of the winter, so that way we're not back in dead battery land and vehicles being upset that way. So there we have it. All of the vehicles in the shop currently that should run do run. And I couldn't be happier about this right now. So got some nice little startup and rev clips of everything, and then this will be coming back very shortly. And at some point in time, we'll talk about the Miata over on the side there. That won't be right now. So the one car that I almost forgot to mention is my SC300. So that car has been up at Accelerated Performance, and my buddy Russ is getting a little bit of wiring squared away on that thing and getting it to the point where I can bring it back here, add fluids, fire it up, so on and so forth. So he's been doing that as kind of a side project, and I told him there's not really a huge rush for it. So at some point in time, that car will be back together and back down here, and we'll have a whole gamut of welding and fabrication projects to knock out on it, as well as some other really cool stuff to come. So can't wait to get started on that. Can't wait to work on all the rest of the stuff in here. And I especially cannot wait to get this structure finished up. So that's about it for the shop update right now. So there's been quite a bit going on behind the scenes here, and between playing carpenter and painter's assistant and alignment assistant, I have been very busy for the past few months, but it's all for a good cause and all to keep all these wacky, wild creations going and moving forward. So with all that being said, before I drone on, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So thank you guys, as always, for coming along on all these different adventures with me, all these different journeys, whether we're playing carpenter, whether we're working on race cars, and all kinds of other things. You guys coming week after week to hang out and watch what's going on here, it's just awesome. It warms my heart, makes me happy, and I love you all very much for it. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, and I look forward to having you all along as these journeys continue to happen. So with all that being said, that will be the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way, as well as Black Friday announcements that will be coming up very shortly. So nobody will want to miss that. It'll be the best prices of the year on all the manifolds that I offer, and everything is in stock and ready to ship. So with all that being said, that'll be the end of this one, and I will see you guys in the next episode.